welcome back to Late Nights. It's been a while, but, that's how we do it. Tonight, we have my illustrious co-hosts, Deak and Scoots. How you guys doing?
Hello. Doing okay.
So good, thanks. How are you?
Doing good.
It's hard to see, because when you say, how are you guys doing, it's hard to, pick who answers first, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Scoots,
I kept it
Scoots,
short,
how are
and
you?
then you...
Scoots is doing good.
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. Yeah. Life is wild, but yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Except for the back
Thank
pain,
you for
right?
asking. Yeah, except for the horrible back pain, but that's just how it goes sometimes, you know?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Scoots.
No, don't be sorry. Blame God. Wait, no, sorry.
No.
Maybe don't include that. I don't know.
Man, Deak, what's going on with you, man?
I'd like to think I'm at the tail end of getting my house resited and new windows installed. It is an epic that continues, and I have a rant that I will not share on air, but there were a few hiccups along the way, we'll just say that, as it sometimes is with contractors.
Got it, for sure. Scotty, you're breathing into your microphone.
I'm so sorry.
It's a little erotic, not gonna lie.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize that it was happening. I don't want to lead you astray, and so I'll move my mic away from my mouth a little bit.
No
To breathe in.
To breathe.
Move
yeah,
away from the mic
chocolate
to breathe in.
rain.
So
Absolutely.
okay, so a couple things have changed since our last podcast. One, I'm now a Playing with Power guy.
Woo! Yeah!
So a little plug. I'm Hire from Playing with Power, aka also Playing with Power and Late Nights.
So Hire from on Playing with Power is from the late nights? Is that what you're saying? That's very impressive.
That's sacrilegious. I can't say that.
That the Playing with Power people were able to get one of the late nights on their show is pretty impressive.
Exactly.
Wow, pretty lucky.
So sick. Yes. So one of the things that's happened since joining Playing with Power that one of the things I didn't foresee, when you're making content, a lot of the time, because I'm pretty far removed from anybody because I live in California, specifically San Diego. I'm far away from a lot of content creators, and that has really made it hard for me to see any impact that I might have in the community. But when I went to Vegas this last week, this is, I don't know when this is gonna post. So at some point in November 21st, that I saw and met a lot of people that I interact with on Discord and people that I meet on Twitter, and I was like, oh wow, it was really interesting to see the landscape of where the content creators are having the most impact, and seeing the people that I really like to see and would like to have met are people that I didn't even realize would have such an impact on me. So comedian, I met Rebel, I met Mikey, I met all these people that I play with online all the time that I'm just oh man, I can I give you a hug? Because I feel this is long overdue.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you exchange vaccine cards first?
Yes.
Here's my credentials for the hug. My hug credentials.
Here's my hug credentials. Yeah. It was the MTG Vegas was actually really interesting with how they handled COVID vaccines and the PCR testing, and so everyone had their masks on, which was good, but it was when people took their masks off, even if it was for a second to drink something or eat something, everyone would give you a dirty look, put your mask back on. And I was like, oh, I can get down with this, because I've been in solitary confinement for 2 years, feeling like a crazy man, and so that was really interesting. And then also some of the people who I met, I would never have guessed they were who they were, because they were so they were masked up, they had a hood on, and I got to play a game with Kyle Hill, and I didn't know who who he was until he was like, "Oh, hey, it's me," and I was like, "Oh, yes, science. Let's talk physics. Do you think birds are real?" Like,
and
I cannot confirm or deny his belief systems. So,
okay. As a man of science, he knows that they're not real.
Clearly knows that they're not real. And so so it was a really interesting experience. I learned a lot about magic, which is always interesting. I want to know your guys' opinion on specifically land bases. And I'm talking about this a lot lately. What do you guys think is
land bases?
Land bases. What do you guys think is an appropriate amount of lands to have in a competitive deck?
Hey, my headset died for a second, and I think there was some talk about birds not being real.
Yeah.
I missed that, and I'm so sorry that I missed that.
I had you covered. There was just another sensible person that I was talking to that is a scientist and also knows that birds aren't real.
Oh, Lotto? Did you meet Lotto?
Oh, Lotto. Lotto's my guy. Lotto. I've known Lotto in IRL for years. Yeah, he and shout out to Lotto MTG. I met him at our local game store. Actually, he was from San Diego. And
sweet.
So when I started seeing
Lotto
him
is
online,
my birds aren't real crusader. Every time I'm on a stream or something, Lotto's in the chat. Someone's like, "I'll cast the Swan Song," and Lotto's like, "That token's not real."
Preach.
Oh man, it's funny because it's a token, so it literally isn't real. That's so funny.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, it's great. It hits all the notes.
Lotto is a bird warrior for sure.
Bird warrior. #BirdLife. So the question that I proposed was, what do you think about land bases in competitive Magic, and what is a good land base? What is bad?
Well, first you
I
asked
have
about
one
the
statement.
number. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, how many numbers? Yeah, how many lands in a deck?
Sure. 28 is my sweet spot right now. 28 to 31 is my sweet spot right now. What about you, Deak?
Well, some people have done experimental-ish lists that dip down to 23, 22, and that's mostly
Bunny Burton on Twitter. 22 Jund Snoop, 22 lands.
Oh boy, have not seen that. I was thinking specifically like the Rog Tevish list that like Ano has, or there's a few others. I dabbled once with like a 12 land list to see if I could make a oh god, what's the name of the card? I'm blanking on it. The one that's like exile card from your hand and add 2 mana. Doesn't matter. Anyways.
Oh, Birdie?
No,
to make a horn of Harnfell?
No. Hang on.
Are you talking about like
you know the
Charbelcher? Are you?
No.
Okay.
It'll come to me at the middle of the podcast, and I'll shout it out regardless of context. So don't worry about that.
I love it.
I'm
waiting for it.
But no, with things like Rograk and such, and things that are low curve and can make use of Mox Amber, you can dip down to 27 just fine.
Paradise Mantle and that.
Yeah. But yeah, like 27 is, or what'd you say, Scoots? You're like 28.
I'm 28 to 31.
28's an aggressive sweet spot. I feel like if you're sort of an aggressive deck, you want that. But as you get more mid-rangey and you want to make those land drops and have turns go longer, you want to up that to about. You usually don't want to go past 31 unless you're doing something very specific, or you have a particularly weird mana base. Like my Najila list runs 32, but it's because it runs like Necropons, which takes 3 black pips and like some other things. So there's it's all special circumstance stuff once you hit above 31.
I will say that over this year, my cats list has gone from 30 to 28, just like progressively downwards, because the amount of like mana generating stuff that you can do has increased, and also the payoffs are like lower on the curve now. Like when Esper Sentinel dropped, it was like, oh, I can get card advantage on 1, so
yeah.
And like Mystic Remora already existed, but I'm a creature heavy deck, so.
And they keep printing stuff like Ragavan too, where it's like, okay, there's one more mana rock that I can prune one more land off or
red
something.
Deathrite Shaman.
You know,
I've been like thoroughly convinced at this time where we're seeing like stacks in mid range really take a stride, and we're seeing
Cadaverous Bloom. That's the name of the card.
There it is, without context.
Without context. Cadaverous Bloom.
Beautiful.
Excellent. I love that. So I think that the range, I think 28 or 27 is fair on the low end, but I also think that the range should cap out around 34 lands. And I say this specifically, and Deak, you actually hit the nail on the head with special circumstances.
Like the Gitrog monster.
Like the Gitrog monster. But like I think decks that play that are commander dependent, that have commanders with the 5 or 6 CMC slot, should be on 33 lands. Particularly because when your commander, especially if you're a commander centric deck, if your commander gets countered or killed and you are on 28 lands, the chances of you being able to recast your commander after you ritualed them out, you used your Jeweled Lotus to get them out, is so low. Like, it takes so long to rebuild after that. And in the meantime, you not hitting land drops means that you're even further away from getting your commander out again. So decks specifically, like, I would even like think about like Niv Mizzet or Gitrog. I've been playing a lot of Crick recently. Where this is like really important, and because Stony Silence, Collector Oof, these cards are making such just making an appearance in decks more commonly. I feel like this is the way you want to go, especially with Rule of Law. Like, you can play 1 land per turn and still play a spell. Like, that is getting you closer and closer to recasting your commander.
I double checked my list, my Niv list, and sure enough, 33. Like, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So I do like the idea of, in like high curve commanders, playing more lands. I think my magic number for high curve commanders is like 31. 33 always feels like too many to me, because in an opening hand I'm looking to see about 2 lands, and at 33 I think the amount of like 3 and 4 land hands that you see is a little higher. So I do like to play a little more aggressively. But I think for me, the way I look at it is lands plus acceleration pieces should equal somewhere between 45 and 50. So I think if you work with like those counts, I think you can definitely find like a happy middle ground.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
But like if you're playing Rakdos Turbo Naz, right, like Rograk Tevesh or whatever, you're playing 17 pieces of artifact ramp or whatever, and all the rituals.
Bajillion rituals, yeah.
So you can
and some
again
of the
hit that 45
mulligan of any deck. So
I mean, that's what Rakdos Turbo Naz. I've been playing some Rakdos Turbo Naz myself with Krark Tevesh, and someone said to me the other day, "Isn't that just how Rakdos Turbo Naz is? Either mediocre 7s or great 4s."
Yes. Yep.
Big facts. Big facts. Yeah. So when it comes to like that kind of like thing where we're looking at turbo lists versus, and this is why I wanted to specify, I'm more talking about like decks that are on mid-range game plans anyways, versus like turbo lists, which you can run 4 lands and still be able to cast a turn 1 ad nos. But like can you imagine? That'd be insane. The biggest part for me, at least, has been like having this like kind of realization that deck building is running off a premise that is old. So like, right. So I think that deck building right now is utilizing like ideas from 2019 or 2018.
Oh man, I so agree. I've been saying this for like the last couple months, and I even made like a fairly detailed Twitter post on this. It's that deck building is like, people are building lists that are based on lists that are based on lists that are based on lists. And the list way at the beginning of the chain had a perfectly good reason for building in the way that it did. And every list after that has strayed farther and farther away from that reason. And we see things like Tainted Pact mana bases in Rurik Thar. And that's like what we see today, like Gruul decks running Tainted Pact mana bases and things like that.
I won't say I'm guilty of that, but am extremely basic land averse for a long time because I just like no one's on Blood Moon or Back to Basics anymore. They haven't been for a long time, so I'm just like I never want to mull hands with color issues. So I do tend to wind up hitting those. I'm not running Tame Pack, but I have the Tame Packed mana base.
Yeah, and I see that like a lot, honestly, and it's because this is my spicy hot take. A lot of times, Blood Moon is basically a throw because Dockside exists.
Yep.
I don't know how spicy that take is anymore, but it was spicy back when I first said it, to the point where I got direct messages asking if I actually thought it was a throw.
It's not. As someone who started playing Blood Moons, like, as Dockside was getting more and more popular, and then eventually, like, cut it from decks, like, it's like, boy, this is not shutting people down anymore. It might shut down some people, and then someone tutors a Dockside, and then it's party time.
First person to Dockside wins.
Honestly, it's like a slap in the face when you cast with your Blood Moon on the stack. Someone like worldly tutors for their Dockside or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just get sad.
You watch them tap their underground sea in their flooded strand and cast a Dockside.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so like this idea that like we have an outdated premise. So some of the things that come along with that are people are building decks, right? So like. We can use like Krark. No, I'm gonna use Krark Tevish. Sure, that seems like a really fun deck.
I love that deck.
Right. So like this deck is like super go fast, right? And like let's add a stacks piece to the mix, right? So let's add Rule of Law. How does Krark win under Rule of Law?
It kills it.
It kills
with
it,
Feed
right?
the Swarm.
It kills it with Feed the Swarm, right? That's the idea, right? But I think that instead of thinking, oh, I want to kill Rule of Law, let's find a way to win through it. How do we win through Rule of Law? And that is not a question you answer right now. That's just right. But like, I think building decks with the idea of what are the most like what are the biggest limiters, and how do we fight these big limiters without saying, oh, I just want to remove it. Because let's say you do remove it, right? Let's say, okay, Rule of Law. Okay, I'm going to Feed the Swarm Rule of Law. Okay, fantastic. And then someone counters your ad nauseam, and then you're just out of it. But now Rule of Law is gone, and the next person to go wins. So we need to, either be very confident, which I believe in my boys, Scotty and Deak, and their ability to navigate Nas piles.
Nice.
But like finding and making sure that your deck can deal with common threats. So Stony Silence, common Stony Silence effects are very common. Rule of Law effects right now, super duper common. Okay, we need to find ways to deal with those two things. How does this deck win through those two things? And finding answers to that. And those answers could be very creative. Like I said before, I've been really hyping Crick lately because I felt like I was spoken to the gospel of Crick. MTG Vegas through a Chilean player. Shout out to his list. That's Crico on the deck database. And I played the deck, and when I played it, there was a turn where there was a Trinisphere, Torpor Orb, Stony Silence, and an active Deathrite Shaman. And I was able to storm through that. And I was shocked that I was able to win through that. It wasn't necessarily hard either. It was just an issue.
It's just something you had to navigate.
Yeah.
This is also a loaded topic, by the way, because there's a lot of bits and pieces to it. You're talking about being able to win through certain circumstances. That may be a good option in deck building if you're seeing lots of Rule of Laws, you're adapting your deck to the meta and you're trying to win through those things versus getting rid of them and removing them and then comboing in sort of a normal fashion on top of it. And then on top of it, like you mentioned, you're previously to me. Sorry, I forgot the Chilean guy's name, the Crick guy.
Oh, Cantra.
Yeah, so he built his Crick deck in such a way where he tries not to rush out Crick so early because it draws hate. And that's sort of building towards your own meta or how people react currently. Like,
which is what you should do, by the way, like 99% of the time.
If you want to win, like, these are all, like, great things, and it sort of blows away, like, how people talk about optimized deck lists. Like, I hate it when people are like, oh, it's optimized. It's like, there are all these little things here that you need to pay attention to and follow in your own meta, and decide for yourself what the best route is. Sorry to go off on a big tangent there.
No, you're accurate, because anytime someone says the words card quality to me, I just want to throw up at this point. Because it's just like, oh, you just play all the best cards. Oh, the best cards for what?
Yep.
Like, there's it's so the CEDH as it stands is so varied. It's such a wide area of, I guess, study, right? Like, there are so many different metas, and like the deck that you build for, like, I keep hearing about the hell on earth of double Winota pods, and I'm like, I've never run into a double Winota pod. I mean,
I did for a while, yeah.
Yeah, I've never played against a double Winota pod.
It happened in the 2-color league too.
Oh, okay.
It's a 2-color league. I mean,
well, yes, it is.
like...
Yeah, it's a 2-color league, but people are talking about the meta being Winota and other Rule of Law stacks decks, and I'm like, what meta where? Because I haven't run into it. Like, I added board wipes to decks, and I gotta say, like, separately, aside from what I'm about to say, I think adding board wipes to your decks is probably still fine.
Yeah.
But everybody was warning me about the Rule of Law stacks meta and the creature stacks meta, so I started adding board wipes to decks, and they feel so bad sometimes. Like, it just I added like Dam and Culling Ritual to my decks.
Dam feels good most of the time.
Colors. Dam feels good most of the time because it doubles as single target removal, but people are talking about their huge Culling Rituals or whatever. Or
like, talk to Sean about that on Corvold. I've seen him blow some things up, man.
I've just never experienced like that huge board wipe that opens the game wide open again. Like, I just haven't experienced it yet. But I think that I play a ton of games, and I think that just goes to show that there is like no one meta, right?
Yeah.
So building your decks for this supposed nebulous meta that exists is a surefire way to lose against your actual playgroup.
Yeah. I playing in Vegas, there was I played a lot of Magic, and I would say the decks that did the best were the decks that had pestilence style effects. So like board wipes, I thought was really good. Pestilence, the card itself, really really good. Because commanders are so, the decks as we go into mid range metas, commander centric decks rise exponentially. And so, like, one deck that I actually was really impressed with was Armix Crom. Armix Crom was just...
Yeah, lost
Armix
that
is
deck a bunch of times.
Armix is insane. Armix is so good. Like, I can't get over how good Armix is. I never played the deck before, and I was like, oh, Armix, whatever. No, Armix is like, oh, what do you have
every
there?
turn, kill a creature.
Yeah. The amount of times that I've lost to that deck prompted me to brew my own Armix deck that I love. like I would play against Mikey on Armix Crom. I assume it was Mikey's Armix Crom
Mikey
bodied you several times. Yeah, I would play against like Mikey's Armix Crom and be like, oh, my Razaketh is fine. Or oh, my Consecrated Sphinx will be okay. And then somehow Mikey has 8 artifacts in his graveyard and in play. And
like how does it not? In like Grixis, it always has like just so many.
But like it'll go from like, oh, it's fine to, oh, one dockside and it can kill anything on the board. Armix, like the potential is huge. It like swells. It's a discard outlet, so you can fuel your own breach with it. It's really cool. It's a really cool brew space, especially for Grixis.
Yeah. I left Vegas and I was like, do I build like Tevish? Wait, no, there's no way I build Tevish Armix, right? Tevish, no, maybe. maybe I do this. You know, like
I mean, you
it was-
might.
I like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I might do like Armix. There's a lot of things I might do with Armix. But the big thing for me was just like how, like, just how, just I don't know how powerful these removal effects that you have on the board that are consistently killing things. Like moving back a step to Crick, he runs Pestilence Demon, and Pestilence Demon with Crick is just out of control. Like, it's just so dumb. I was so upset when it hit the board, and of course I'm playing Kinnan mid power, so like I'm like, oh, so excited, oh, Kinnan, and then like Pestilence, I'm like, mother, oh god, this sucks. Yeah, it's just really, really powerful, like those kind of effects. I think board wipes are definitely underrated right now, especially like just hard board wipes. Just, you know, Damnation, Wrath of God, just let's just clear the board. Let's just start over.
I tried running Pernicious Deed for a while. I did pop it a couple times. It felt good, but also wrong.
Yeah, I could see that. Pernicious Deed, what a card. What a card.
I remember like early memories of interacting with Spleenface. I don't know if the whole audience knows Spleenface, but Spleenface of Into the North. Early memories were him playing Muldrotha and recurring Pernicious Deed over and over and over and over.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Yeah, she does that. One of the things that I really think is important regarding, like, you know, updating your understanding of where the current meta is how almost uncounterable creatures are right now. How almost uncounterable creatures are. If you have a creature that does an effect that you need it to like resolve, it more than likely will. There's a total of what, three counter spells right now that hit creatures.
I think this goes like a way towards talking about the interaction suite currently in favor in CEDH deck building. And I think, much like in the Flash era, the interaction suite has swayed more towards defending against Turbonaws type lines, in that people are running things like Miscast, Dispel, Spell Pierce again. But I find that in small pockets of people, in certain groups, that the Turbonaws doesn't get played much. You don't see the 4X Turbonaws pods, and so you see wider interaction. And I think there are honestly, like, as far as interaction, I think as far as like broad counterspells, we're in the best era of those that we've ever been in. They keep printing new unconditional counterspells. It's just people are worried about slot efficiency, so they don't run them.
Yeah, I think.
But
I
saw a counterspell again the other day. Like, someone just raw counterspelled me. So, I guess the nature is healing.
Yeah, nature's healing. You know, there's a lot of really good counterspells out there that I think should be run. One card that like immediately jumps to my mind is Mindbreak Trap.
I've
been Mindbreak Trap so many times in recent history. It's apparently hot again. But yeah, it's an unconditional counter spell. Well, I mean, it has conditions, but it counters anything.
It counters everything.
It doesn't counter anything, guys. It exiles spells. Okay.
Sorry, it exiles everything. Sorry, my bad. But the fact that, like, cards like that I think are really, really good in a lot of situations that are just like, oh man, should be run. I also think Delay is a card that like sees some play. That I think should be in a lot of people's decks just because it's one blue, one colorless.
I think we owe it, though, to give a little more context to Mindbreak Trap. It's very good if you know why you're using it. Don't just like throw it in a deck. Like, for instance, I'll bring up like Yuriko here. The deck loves free spells. It's also not fast enough to keep up with fast decks. Mindbreak Trap is in that little niche there where it's like, this does both things. It's free, I can keep tapping out, and I have some sort of extra little backup against someone going nutters with an Underworld Breach.
It's also pretty good hit off of a flip.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
alright. That's not
Yeah.
something I ever care to
Not
think
something
about
you consider? Oh,
in
gotcha.
deck building for Yuriko, because it's just, at this point, it's such a
There are so many things that could be good flips off of Yuriko.
yeah. If it happens, it happens.
It's the Blood Pod flex slot thing all over again.
Oh, which one was that? What was that about?
Every time a new card would come out, people would say, "Oh, does this go in the flex slot in Blood Pod?"
Yeah.
Yes.
Every time. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. When I first started playing CDH, I remember I got stomped on by a Blood Pod deck, and I like immediately became obsessed with it. And I went into the Blood Pod server, and that's when they were trying to, like, I think Lurker was making Pet Cemetery. And,
Yep.
and I was just like, wow, like, what about this card? What about this card? And then, like, I was like, oh wait, I'm that guy. Oh no. I'm just offering to use
Wow,
this
you are
card.
the Blood Pod flex slot guy.
You had awareness, though. That sets you apart.
Yeah. Oh man.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Blood
And
Pod. What a deck.
You went all the way from fledgling Blood Pod man to higher of playing with power. Like, look at the glow up. Look at the journey.
You're out of control. That's the one thing that the only thing I will say is that I have really solid people around me, and that includes you too. You know, I don't know. Scotty, you said something to me a long time ago, and I acknowledged your ability to hold on to interaction while everyone else bleeds all their interaction onto the table. And it was that early on you got a chance to play with some really good people, and they taught you to play Magic in a certain way that, like, has propelled you into a player that you are now. Like, I don't know, I've been really fortunate with like you to, like, so specifically Deak and Scoots. Shout out to Ashani and Timmy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like I would say the core four of, like, people who, like, really shaped my early CDH experiences. And by shaped, I mean getting stomped on by.
I mean, Scoots was one of my first introductory guys into CEDH when I first popped on Play EDH. Him and Tim were on, and by gum, some of my first games. Very fun.
Dang.
Yo.
Good.
Now,
Good
several years
memories.
ago.
Long time ago. You know what else happened a long time ago? Well, we started a podcast within a podcast called Late Nights Birds Aren't Real. And this is that podcast, Late Nights Birds Aren't Real. I'm your host, Scoots. It's a podcast within a podcast. I'd like to talk about something that happened a long time ago, and it was John F. Kennedy Jr. dying.
Wasn't from a bird, though.
No, it was not from a bird, but in fact, there are still people in Dallas waiting for John F. Kennedy Jr. to come back from the dead and go hang out with them. Higher, Deak, are you excited for the return of JFK Jr., or are you thinking it's going to be a no-go?
I'm somewhat worried he'll return as a lizard person. That is
Okay.
a possibility. Like, when you're gone that long, you wonder, where are they? I mean, he's
Absolutely.
not buried, but is he buried? You know, is he in the earth with the lizard people, and are they transforming him? That's a possibility.
Yeah, you have to wonder if the Anunnaki got him and ascended him into a lizard person. Higher, what's your take on the situation?
Well, if he comes back, he better come back with Tupac.
Okay.
That's the only way I will accept it. Otherwise, I don't believe it's real. Like, it.
Yeah, I've never seen Tupac in the ground, so I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure Tupac is still alive.
I'm 100%.
Why is it always Tupac you hear about? Why not Biggie?
Oh, because, I mean, if Biggie didn't die from, like, being shot, he's dead from diabetes at this point.
Oh my
Like,
Fair.
yeah, I mean, Biggie's not as much of a wild card as Tupac. Tupac was, you know, man, looked like he had some longevity in him.
Yeah, black don't crack. That's what they say. Something like that. Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
I believe that's the phrase. At least that's what it says on the bottle of cocoa butter I have at home.
Okay, all right. I can't claim to be a subject matter expert on that.
Fun fact. Okay, here's something that the world needs to know. Listen, cocoa butter has a bottle. It has a brown cap. If you've used it, you know it. If you haven't used it, then you may not know it. The worst thing about it is that it has a very odd texture. Because at first you put it in your hand, you're thinking, oh man, my skin's about to be so moist. I'm so excited. And then you put it on, and then your skin's still dry, and it's turned into like this watery substance, and you're just so sad.
I'm super intrigued by this subject, first off, because I actually know almost nothing about cocoa butter, other than I am like 2 frogs belly white in order to put it on myself. So, what does it smell like, first off? Does it have an odor?
Cocoa butter?
Yeah.
Yes. It smells like vanilla. It smells like vanilla. Or it's very pleasant smell. Very pleasant smell.
How long does the feeling last on your skin?
Not long. That's why the bottle is so big.
Oh, okay. So you really a few times a day you slather something on?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially if you live in a really dry area. Yeah, for sure. You definitely put it on.
Okay.
Typically speaking, black people, right? As a black person, I will bestow upon you some knowledge. Have dry skin, very dry skin. That's why I put on lotion, and people get made fun of for not putting on lotion because then your skin gets ashy. Ashy. You don't want to be ashy. That's not something you want to be. So you put on lotion to prevent this. And the trick is not using cheap cocoa butter, because that will just make your life sad. Because you'll always be just dry skin.
But cocoa butter in general works better than most lotions. I'm thinking the more expensive ones, mid-rangey CeraVe, things like that, whatever it is.
Yeah. So if you were to use Aveeno, right?
Yeah.
Right. Aveeno has shea butter in it, and that's usually what you're looking for is shea butter. And so cocoa butter, typically it's a cocoa butter with shea butter in it. And that is usually your go-to. And I think it's just because those products are offered in areas that are poor, and you see those a lot. Growing up for me, we had bottles and bottles of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was at the dollar store. You could get as much as you wanted, even though the product wasn't that great. But you just got used to it, and everyone had it.
Do you know, is it the same stuff that they make chocolate out of? Or is it just a different...
Shea
Can
butter?
you cook with cocoa butter?
Cocoa butter.
Oh, no.
Butter.
I don't think there's any cacao in it. No, I don't think
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's just the name. You know what? But we have the power of the internet. That would be really funny.
That's cheating. We can't use the internet right now.
Okay, sorry. No cheating from me.
Okay, I guess we can look up if you can cook with it.
We're actually currently in the middle of an episode of Late Night's Birds Aren't Real, so you can't use the internet.
Oh, the internet, yeah.
While you're doing that, because it is untrustworthy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I think that would make sense though if you had cacao. And that would give it a lot more sense. So yeah,
that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah,
could you get some cocoa nibs, grind them up?
According to Google, you can cook with cocoa. All I did was I typed in, "Can I cook with cocoa butter?" That's telling me I can cook with cocoa butter.
Okay, well, I trust that first result.
I don't.
What? No.
I do not recommend this.
Whatever they said, everybody go get some of your special Jergens.
Do it because the
Squeeze it
government
into
doesn't
your
want you
favorite
to
cast
do it.
iron. Yeah,
my
exactly.
If anyone cooks cocoa butter, don't just know there was a parental advisory warning to not
Squeeze
do that.
it into your favorite
nights.
cast iron. Sear off a steak in some Jergens.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
accidentally putting lotion into your mouth, you eat something and there's lotion on your hands, makes that thing inedible. I don't care what anyone says. Jergen, oh my god, no.
All right, that's fair. Hey, thank you everyone for tuning in to Podcast Within a Podcast, Late Nights Birds Aren't Real. It's so much appreciated, and we'll see you in the next one. Back to your regular show.
That's great. So Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering's been actually really interesting lately. This concept of brewing decks now with the understanding that things have changed since 2018, 2019. One of the things that I've been really trying to figure out is ways to, what is a deck that uses a strategy that I think is really really strong, and I think one of the decks that pop up into my head is Razakats. Yeah, Razakats I think is a really really good deck. I wonder though, right? There's a lot of cards in Razakats that when you draw them, they're kind of like lame. Like Life Death makes you feel a little sad when you draw it, when you don't need it at that time. Indeed, right? And so, is there a better combo that can utilize a similar package that exists? And the first thing that like popped in my head was Necrotic Ooze, Asmodeus, and Scourge Familiar. Individually, those cards are okay, but the combo is commander agnostic, and you just need Buried Alive and a reanimation spell, and you can win. Seems decent. It doesn't get stopped by very many things, and you only need to, you just need to cast Buried Alive, and then if there's a rule of law, then the next turn you cast your reanimation spell, or not even in your next turn, you can cast it in like the next player's turn, with like a Necromancy or something like that.
So I think Necrotic Ooze is a just fine combo, but it is susceptible to the same things that like any Reanimator deck is susceptible to, and the reason, number one, I love the idea of bringing back Necrotic Ooze. Like I like Necrotic Ooze. I remember the old Mimeoplasm decks. Like I bought the Secret Lair with the fancy ooze,
Ooh,
and I don't.
fancy.
Yeah, so like I think the card's really cool, but I will say that probably about 90% of the time in Razakats, I'm going to feel better about drawing Razaketh or Villis than I am about drawing Necrotic Ooze. So I think you trade like the life-death conundrum for like the, oh god, Necrotic Ooze is not so great outside of my combo.
Or Asmodeus in hand, or whatever.
Yeah.
But like Razaketh, I will say that aside from Loyal Retainer's wins lately, just because of the way I've been intentionally sequencing to get those lines, most of my Razaketh assembled wins in Razakats have come from a hard cast Razaketh, unlike turn 7 or 8. Because it just doesn't feel bad to hard cast Razaketh and then sack your creatures for tutors.
Yeah. And that's actually really fair, right? Like, I think that's one of the reasons why I brought it up, because you are our foremost expert in Razakats. And really pushing that boundary of, like, is the creatures that we, look for 2-4 play most commonly, that our decks have been themed around, are those the most powerful reanimation targets or most powerful synergies, and we should maybe be looking at like other options. And I do believe that in this time Razaketh is like the best option for that, but I want to push that boundary. Like, I want to push as much as I can, because I found a lot of, and I think there's a lot of inspiration from Mid-Power Kinnan. I found a lot of success in running some of these like really like clunky creatures that just have immediate impact once they enter the battlefield, in whatever way that you can get them on the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that there is, like, I've played against some decks that were like a Sararak Alurin.
Oh, Sararak.
Like, yeah, Thrasios Tymna, a Sararak Alurin, which was like interesting. Another interesting one, and people do like Thrasios Tymna lists that maintain most of the Razakats core, but remove like the reanimation. And then I think that like another approach to Razakats a la Necrotic Ooze and that kind of thing, I think these are all decks that like have A, viability, and B, like winning potential. I think they're all like really good ideas that should probably be further explored. But at the same time, I think I was hoping that we might discuss this on this podcast, and I saved it instead of sending it to you in our DMs because I wanted to have this talk, and I'm so glad we did. And here's how it goes. I think that keeping yourself locked into that kind of Razakat's core while you're exploring necrotic ooze piles is maybe a disservice to both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you need to eschew the boundaries of that mid-range shell and explore things like, for instance, Hermit Druid. Can definitely synergize with necrotic ooze, and if you go down that Hermit Druid path, you can run things like Young Necromancer, and like Vile Entomber is another option to get your combo off, and you have lots of different options. And then even past that, you could go with something like Sidisi instead of Thrasios Timna, and your Hermit Druid can fuel a Razaketh line if your Necrotic Ooze is gone or whatever. And you have so many options. So I think you have like a wide variety of paths open to you in the brewing of this deck. And yeah, I wanted to maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a Deak. Do you have a thought here?
Yeah. This just reminded me, totally not off subject. Reminded me of a commander that I was like sort of dabbling with, and just reminded me. I forgot what it's called. It's like a Hydra. It's X Jund colors, and when he attacks, you can exile a creature from your graveyard and make a copy in the battlefield. And I totally was going Necrotic Ooze lines with it, and this is like a couple years ago. But yeah, just remind me of that, because you could bury it alive, make a copy of the news with your commander, and then do the combo.
That's actually really sick.
That's really cool. I don't know what that
I'll look
card
him
is.
up. Give me a second. Yeah. It was in one of the precons.
Was it pre-con commander? Jeez.
Oh, Maskwood Nexus and Scion of the Ur-Dragon?
I'll find him.
Do it.
Super nice.
Almost there. Oh, Gyrus, Waker of Corpses.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, for sure. You could also do a similar line with Cedrus, the Traitor King.
Oh, yeah. Classic Cedrus maneuver. I remember you talking about that a long time ago.
Yeah, shout out to Mab the Queen, man. That card is ridiculous. Okay, so when I'm thinking about like cards that I want to add to try and make a line that and like really pushing that boundary, I think is really, really interesting. Like, okay, how can I improve this mid-range plan without affecting the core, right? Because at the end of the day, like that's what the deck wants to do, but I want to improve that and thinking about cards that can get me there. For me, like my immediate response is like, okay, I need a certain type of effect, and the effect that I need is, I don't know, I need to put Necrotic Ooze onto the battlefield. Let's just say that. I'm going to stick with that because I know the most about that right now. So like Flesh Writher, right? Shout out to Future Sight, has Transfigure, allows you to search for a 4-drop and put it onto the battlefield.
Indeed.
Right? That allows me to get Necrotic Ooze, which is really cool. And then what's cool about Necrotic Ooze and this specific interaction is that you now get Flesh Writher's ability, and you can transfigure Necrotic Ooze to grab Balfour, which is another 4-drop.
Balfour the Defiled, yeah, the crick lines. And so I think our brains went to the same place when we saw that list.
Yeah, we did.
Because I saw that list and I was like, would this be better with more colors? And the answer that I came to was no, because of Crick's mana cheating ability makes
Balfour.
that a lot more concise.
Yeah.
But like also at the same time, I kind of want to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay. After this, I have words. So like that line, right? That line was really inspiring to me because it was like, okay, look at this line. It's very specific in how it's interacting, and it starts with one card. And I love that it starts with one card, and all you need is mana to make this work. And to me, that spoke like volumes into like what are some things that I could be doing differently. And I think that's something that I've seen in a couple of decks that you both have made is look at this card on its own, it's okay, but in this deck, it does something really awesome. And I want to say like Full English Breakfast and with Niv Mizzet for Deak. both of those decks have cards in them that, like, on their own they're okay, but like because you've constructed the deck to work in a certain way, you really push the limit as to like what can the strategy do if we dedicate all of our resources to it. If we dedicate all of our resources to drawing cards through Niv Mizzet, what cards should we put in the deck? Let's put in all the free stuff that no one plays in any deck.
Yeah.
Thunderclap.
Let's put in Thunderclap. Right. So, and then
Kills Gildadrake.
It does the thing. Right. Let's put in Lightning Greaves, and let's use Cephalid Illusionist, and let's just mill our decks through that. All we need is Thrasios, and we can just keep. Wait, what? Like, I don't get it. And so, like, I think those ideas are really, really what's going to make a deck now stand out, at least for me, because you are not just like, yeah, you're going to have like some of the common win cons because they're concise and they're easy to use, but like how we get there, I think is really important, that journey, and how it looks at the challenges that the current metas currently have. I don't know, that's just, to me, that makes a good deck great.
That's kind of tricky though, because how we get there is gonna be different for everyone, right? Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, for instance, like the Flesh Rider example, like it might have been something like, and like I've done this before, where you're just like, oh, this card's so cool, like what could I use it in?
Yep.
And then you just happen to have something else that it fits with, and then in that case it works out. Or you go through this long list of every single commander that it could possibly go, and you're like, could work here? No. Could work here? No. Could work here? No. And then it's a dud. But then you come back to it like however later, and something clicks. Like that's just magic. Like you borrow. There's so many cards at this point that you just have to stumble upon things or just be thinking about random interactions, and then sometimes it works out.
Yeah, I will say this is for me, like what you said. You see a card and it's so cool. Like, so back in the day, I had a Malcolm and Breaches deck, and I thought it was really fun because you could accrue a ton of card advantage. And then I saw two things. One, I saw Dargo, who's a 7-mana 7/5 with trample that you can cast cheaply, which was cool enough. But I wasn't completely sold. But then Fire Giant's Fury came out in the Kaldheim, I think, Commander set.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, Breaches is dead to me. Long live Dargo, because I want to exile 9 cards off the top of my library and play them
For 2 mana.
For 2 mana, yeah, exactly. So I think definitely, like you said, that resonates with me. You see a card, and oh, this card is so cool. I wish I could do something with it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, me and Deak share the love of Estrid. I've many
love is a
times
strong word.
Sorry,
it's a bad deck.
It's
a bad card.
We share a bad habit of trying to prove Estrid. So like every once in a while, I'll like send Deak a message like, hey, what about this? Could we do this with Estrid? And he'll be like, okay, let me look at it. And then he'll just amuse it. And then they're like, dude, no.
It would take something crazy to bring Estrid to life. It was never, okay, I'll say this. If any time it was a playable deck, it would probably be now, just because there's so many decks dirtling and doing nothing. You could probably just hop right in the fray and do it too, and get away with it.
There's a lot of decks.
But yeah.
Speaking of dirtling, not dirtling, that's not the wrong word. Speaking of janky, like, combos, I came across a combo today. Shout out to Aku, the Kodama server. No, it wasn't in the Kodama server. It was in Second Seven server. Anyways, so there's a line. I'm not gonna spoil it, but the line gives you infinite meddling mages, and
oh my god, that is my favorite card of all time.
Yeah. So it allows you to do infinite meddling mages and name every card, and then your opponent cannot just no magic, no more magic can happen.
That's beautiful.
Wonderful.
I love that.
And when I saw the line, I was like, it's a long line. It's like 7 cards deep, and I was like, okay, how do you even like get here? He's like, well, first you need infinite mana. I was like, all right, and then you need these cards, and I was like, okay, these cards are awful on their own, but keep going. then he's like, and then this happens, and I was like, oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful piece of art right there. Yeah. Go ahead, make a deck that does that, and I want to see it happen. That'd be great.
Yeah, why not? Right? Like, I want to see it happen.
Yes, I just want to see infinite meddling mages. That's all I want to see. It might feel better than having like 3 Nyxbloom Ancients. I feel like it might feel better.
Dang, I don't know if it's better than having 3 Nyxbloom Agents, but it's probably pretty good.
Yeah. By the way, 3 Nyxbloom Ancients and 4 Nyxbloom Ancients feel the same, by the way, if you didn't know.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Once you hit a point, it's all the same.
The amount of mana that you've made is roughly infinite.
Yeah.
The 4th one doesn't really affect it, right?
When you can make, like, I've manually stormed with Kinnan where I've had 4 Nyxbloom Ancients, and I was like, I don't have infinite mana right now, guys, but I have like enough to do what I need to do. Like, I don't.
Yeah, your Mana Vault taps for 108.
Yeah, like, I'm chilling, guys. Like, I don't need anything more than this. So definitely having like those like cards that you definitely try to mash into a deck, and then finally like something clicks. Man, for me, Deadeye Navigator is that card. I put that card in literally any deck that I can fit it in. Literally.
I remember Kenrith Evo getting Deadeye Navigator. That was the start of like a really, really beautiful thing in which people started playing Deadeye Navigator for a while.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I will say that's one of those things, seeing that kind of tweaked like my deck building philosophy a bit too. Because I generally used to be the and I still am in most cases, but the person who like, oh, if a card's over 4 mana, it has to win the game. 4 or more mana, it has to win the game. And like, that's generally how I feel about cards, but seeing like Deadeye Navigator soul bond with a Terastodon,
it does. Well, I mean, it does kind of win the game, though.
It kind of wins eventually, but like just seeing like, oh, Deadeye Navigator soul bond with Eternal Witness, and every turn cycle get back whatever card you want, and these big higher costed value engines that, let's be honest, like can come out as early as turn 2 or turn 3. I've definitely found myself including more of those big swingy things. Absolutely.
There's by the way, so it's only because it's happened 3 times, and that I now know this pile very well. In Kinnan, I have a Doomsday pile. And
okay.
So the reason why I say it like that is because Wandering Archaic has triggered multiple times, 3 times right now, and I've gotten someone's Doomsday, and everyone says the same thing, like, oh, like, do you want to get Doomsday? And I'm like, yes, absolutely,
yes, please,
yes, I'll take it. And the funniest thing is, okay, so Kinnan is one blue pip, right? And most of the time when I'm playing Kinnan, I'll have like another blue creature out. I don't know, whatever. I'll have a Thrasios. Let's say I have Thrasios, right? So I have Thrasios, and so my pile is Deadeye Navigator, Thassa's Oracle, and then I'll have like Endurance, and then maybe like, I don't know, Gitaxian Probe and Mana Crypt or whatever. And so what I'll do is the Doomsday pile will end, and then the other player will like try to do their thing, do the Doomsday thing. Their Thassa's Oracle will be on the stack, and then in response I'll activate Kinnan, putting my Thassa's Oracle, and my devotion is 4, and I can win right there.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and I've done it. So the first time I didn't know like what to do, and I whiffed it. The second time I did it, and the third time it got interrupted because I had 2 Doomsday. No, not 2 Doomsday. There was a because I had 2 Wandering Archaics. There was a polymorph effect, and it was the one that polymorph destroys a creature, right? And that player owned. Yeah. So so they destroyed one of my creatures, and it flipped Thassa's Oracle too early, and I was like, oh, that's so good. Okay, so now I know. Okay, if I ever have two, if I ever wander on a cake and destroy my creature, okay, so let me just make sure that I know what's at the table, and let me make it so Deadeye Navigator is first, and then Thassal's Oracle can come out, and then everyone can just eat a dick. But
absolutely.
But yeah, but Deadeye Navigator has just been like outrageously good. And every time it enters the battlefield, it does something really effective.
The thing that I really liked, I was originally playing Deadeye Navigator in Jaleva, and here's a little secret. Sometimes I still do, but the database list doesn't have it because I got some flack for it from the database curators for having a 6-drop in the list, but as it turns out, sometimes I play Deadeye Navigator, and did you know Deadeye Navigator is the one card that makes flickering a phantasmal image as a dockside win the game with Jaleva.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't target. The ability doesn't target.
Yes.
So you can just do that. And I've definitely gotten away with that before, and people are like, wait a second, does that work?
And sometimes
like,
you
if
slip
I'm
in
playing
the
on a
secret
server,
tech, man. Catch
Say that
everyone
again?
off. Sometimes you slip in the secret tech and
Yeah,
catch everyone
sometimes
off
you
guard.
do. Absolutely. And if it's like on a gameplay server with like volunteer judges or whatever, they'll be like, hey, can we get a judge? Does this work? And I was like, what? Why would it not work? It never targets. And they were like, don't you sacrifice the phantasmal image when you soul bond it? No, you don't.
You choose a creature.
Yeah.
That's one of those things. It's like, you have this cool tech, and Jaleva, by the way, is a wonderful deck. I'm like,
thanks.
I've been smacked by it one too many times. I'm
glad more people are playing it, which is cool.
It's so good, so good.
Yeah, get a couple messages every once and again where someone's like, I built Jaleva. Oh, it's so fun. It's so much more fun than Kess, and I'm like, oh, thanks. That's really good to hear.
Oh man, Kess. Kess is a card. Yeah. So overall, I think these are just like things that people should think about when brewing decks, because there's a lot to kind of make up for because of people's reliance on old lists and building their decks based off those old lists and those old mana bases or interaction packages, when in reality there's some things that are happening now that you probably need to adjust your decks for. And yeah, I think that was my take for the day.
It's a beautiful take and a wonderful journey that we took to get there.
Awesome. All right, well,
I learned so much about cocoa butter. Thank you for that hire.
It's so funny. The podcast within a podcast teaches all.
I'm also like, is it okay if I ask about cocoa butter? I better not. Ask about it.
No, this is a safe space, Deak. This is a safe space. All right. Do you guys have any final thoughts for this podcast today?
Final thoughts. Dang. I have one final thought, and it's as follows. I've been talking to a couple friends who've tried to submit decks to the CEDH decklist database in the past, and they're very down because their decks were not accepted in the last update. So my final thought is as follows. The staff of the CEDH decklist database and the reviewers, and they're all volunteers, they all work really hard, but they are not the final arbiters of what is and isn't CEDH completely. They are one resource, and the other important thing to note is that it's just a catalog of decks that are probably meta decks. It's not like these are the only decks that are CEDH. And if your deck wins CEDH games, plays with a fairly low curve, and is designed in a way that its objective is to win as early as it can or prevent a win in that same kind of framework, then your deck is probably CEDH and you have nothing to sweat about. That's what I have to say.
Yeah.
Beautiful
Good
message,
call.
good sir.
Hire and I are both volunteer reviewers, as you mentioned, so that is a great perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We try our best, everyone. We're imperfect. It's just a resource.
Just a
Yeah.
reset. Oh my gosh. I do want to say that, like, if you submit a list that you worked really hard on, the one thing that I could 100% say will help is make a primer. Make a very comprehensive primer. Keep it.
Don't say very
12.
comprehensive, then you'll get things like the Gitrog
yeah,
one. That's like
yeah.
50
Corvald
pages.
one, 42
Yeah.
pages with individual card discussion for each of the 99 cards in the list.
Yeah. Don't make it that long, please. But honestly, though, make your primer and to explain the cards that you excluded that would maybe be considered like a mandatory card. Good examples of this are like, if you don't have any fetches in your deck, why don't you have any fetches? There are decks on the database that don't have fetches. Crick doesn't have deck fetches. Either does Savala Brostorm. And so, like, just make those justifications, and that will help a long way. I'm not saying that will get your deck on the database or anything like that, but it helps the reviewers because we review a lot of decks, like a lot of decks, and the decks that don't have primers, it's easy for us to just like look at the deck and say like, oh, there's these things wrong with the deck, and there's no explanation as to why these cards aren't in the deck, and that gives us a little justification to move the deck forward in that process. So
My final word. Can I do a final word?
do your final word, bud.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just play what you want to play and have fun playing, and have discussions with your playgroup, like any power level if needed, and have a good time. And don't worry too much about what people on the internet think about your stuff.
Yeah,
Facts.
definitely.
Big facts. Final thought. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time out of your day or night to listen to this podcast. I know it's been a while since we've had an episode, but life got a little busy. But we appreciate it. I appreciate y'all. By y'all, I mean Deak and Scoots for joining this, ragtag group.
Thank you. We're the ragtag ones,
pleasure.
Mr. Playing with Power.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Get out of here.
We are,
Higher
but
playing with
but
power.
slugs beneath
You
you.
guys are so ridiculous. Speaking of ragtag, no, that's actually the wrong phrase. Speaking of things, Scotty, you're doing something new. Can you tell us about your new project?
Which one?
The one with Cicada.
Oh, I'd love to. So my newest project is a YouTube channel with Cicada from formerly of Split Second and Anxiety Elemental Claire. It is called Who Brewed This, and it is a project where we highlight rogue brews and pit them against established or meta decks and see how they do. Our first two videos are out on YouTube right now.
Oh, man.
And we have another one coming. We took a little bit off for Thanksgiving and like being with family. But the other one is coming, I believe, this week. I think it features a guy named David Urek Mazzino, and it is a Staxy one. It's really good. I hope that people enjoy it. It's been like a labor of love to get off the ground, so yeah.
Awesome.
I'm liking it and bookmarking it right now, Scoots. I will watch it.
It's
Sounds
so
awesome.
good.
buddy. Appreciate
It's so
that.
good. Oh my gosh. And like Scotty's kind of like more subdued in his like communications. And if you want to hear Scotty hyped, like super hyped, you gotta watch it. It's so good, dude. It's
Fun,
so good.
Fun drinking game. Take a shot whenever Scotty says, "Very cool."
I don't say very cool anymore because my friend Deak asked me not to.
Hey, but these first two videos might be before that. So, drinking.
Yeah,
game
that's true.
on.
I might say very cool. Also, a fun thing about my hypeness and my energy, specifically probably referring to the intro for the second video,
Yeah.
I was absolutely dog tired. I do this thing where I just don't sleep, and I was like passed out, dog tired, so I drank 2 or 3 monsters that day. And I got home and I did my VO, and I was wired, so it all just kind of came out.
It was so good. I was like, I've never heard Scotty like this, and it is wonderful. Awesome. Okay. So thank you all for listening to today's podcast. If you like this type of content, please put a thumbs up. I'm just kidding. If you like this type of content, interact with us. We're on social medias. You can reach out on Twitter. I'm Higher MTG on Twitter. Deak, what is your Twitter handle?
Oh, I don't know. Don't tweet me, but I have one.
Don't tweet me.
Don't tweet me, bro.
It's that Deak Mania or something.
I'm on Discord or
Something like
you'll figure
that,
it out.
yeah.
I've got decks. You can Moxfield me.
Yeah.
Is that thing? You can Mox me.
You can Mox him. You can Mox you. Something like that.
Mox me up on my field phone.
Everyone listening to this is probably already on Discord. I don't know.
That's
Yeah.
true. Big facts. Scotty, what about you, bud?
You can find me, my link tree is linktr.ee/Scoots, and Scoots has 8 O's, which is coincidentally my Twitter handle, Scoots with 8 O's, SCOOOOOOOOOTS. Yeah, and everything is there.
Solid. Well, thanks, you guys, and we will catch you on the next one.